I am very pleased to read for you the final two claims made in a delightful story by the fiction writer Maxwell Conroe. Titled The Dupin Files, Sherlock Holmes, this story is one out of 25 new adventures collected in Magic Musings, Conroe's latest story bundle. 3. Misgivings about Doyle. Lately, Sherlock Holmes has come to the realization, almost at the same time as his fellow sleuth Poirot, that Doyle has actually caused the detective enormous distress and lasting trauma. Since Doyle's death in 1930, Holmes' situation has only little improved. Holmes retained his offices in 221B, Baker Street, London, but was left no life of his own. His name and his legacy are being traded as a commodity by the literary estate of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Only recently are most of the copyrights due to expire. Some either already have or are due to expire soon. Most of the copyrights to Doyle's work have already expired in 2022, the rest is set to expire in 2025. All being said, I, Auguste Dupin, am acting based on facts only, and my opinion is that Doyle was, in principle, not a bad man. During his life, Doyle has tirelessly campaigned to save the lives of 3 men, 2 successfully in 1 failed case. First, Doyle came to the rescue of George Adalgy, who had been wrongly convicted for a series of cattle mutilations in Staffordshire. The Adalgy case had first attracted Doyle's attention in late 1906, and would take up a great many more months until finally, in May 1907, a committee of inquiry, after a review of the case, concluded that the man was not guilty of the cattle mutilations. The evidence had been tainted and therefore the trial unfair. Doyle also campaigned nearly 2 decades against Oscar Slater's imprisonment for the alleged murdering of a woman in Glasgow. Ultimately, Doyle would succeed. Slater was finally freed in 1927, after being convicted in 1908. Also to his credit, Doyle had joined in 1916 a movement that vehemently appealed against the planned execution of Sir Roger Casement for treason. The appeal was unsuccessful and the execution of Casement was sealed following the Easter Rising in Dublin. Roger Casement had been Doyle's model for John Roxton in The Lost World, 1912, in D.E. Morell had inspired the character of Ned Malone, with Professor Challenger in the main role in that novel. Few have realized that Doyle's Lost World already features dinosaurs, pterodactyls, surviving deep in the Amazonian jungle, in a way Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, 1990, borrowed a great deal from Doyle's plot, released as a Spielberg film in 1993. Doyle also came to lend his lucid writing skills to expose the atrocities committed in Belgian Congo by a cruel colonial regime by writing in a very concerned activist style a manifesto, published simultaneously both in the US and UK. Arthur Conan Doyle's The Crime of the Congo was published in 1909, joining the cause of the journalist D.E. Morell to complain against the brutality and inhumanity of the Belgian Congo regime. Although Holmes has saved 2 men from wrongful imprisonment, campaigned against the execution of Roger Casement, and against the Belgian cruelties in the Congo, in the case of Holmes, Doyle took him always for granted. He blatantly neglected Holmes' right of self-determination. Of course, a key judicial issue remains whether imagined characters should be granted the right of self-determination. This issue is much the same as the one arising when robots built are equipped with artificial intelligence. Should such machines be granted the right of self-determination? According to some, there is no need to dwell on feelings or right of self-determination for machines equipped with artificial intelligence. But others attribute sentience to robots, suggesting these are able to sense impressions and feel things, thus are as conscious and responsive as living beings. Well, the same way as coded language brings to life sentience in robots, literary creatures like Sherlock Holmes are sentient, as claimed here for the first time. When Doyle was at the end of his life, exhausted and in ill health, he wrote a few days before his death, on July 7, in 1938, "The reader will judge that I have had many adventures. The greatest and most glorious of all awaits me now." He had been an avid spiritualist in the last decades of his life. 4. The evidence against Doyle. The evidence of Doyle's ill intentions toward Holmes lay in plain view, in the form of written literary confessions and letters to his mother, first made public in 2007, A Life in Letters. For example, Doyle wrote, April 6, 1893, I am in the middle of the last Holmes story, after which the gentleman vanishes, never to reappear. I am wary of his name. Doyle was only working on what would be the second Holmes story bundle, Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. But what the public wanted from Doyle was more Holmes stories that the author was loath to write. Doyle abhorred the prospect. Already in an earlier letter to his mother, of November 11, 1891, while still working on the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes and having completed only 5 of the 12 stories, he states his cruel plan: I think of slaying Holmes in the 6th and winding him up for good and all. He takes my mind from better things. He tries to justify what he writes about to his mother as much to himself when he writes her in 1894, on the whole there is nothing about which I have doubts in dreams and drama, short stories, mostly medical. You may, as it seems to me, write what you will as long as you don't write with flippancy. That is just the dividing line between Tolstoy and a Maupassant. In fact, Tolstoy had just accused Maupassant to be flippant in his eulogy for Maupassant, see my meaning of being stories, and obviously Doyle had read Tolstoy's accusations to Maupassant's address. But Doyle himself can be easily accused of opportunism, or even flippancy, in his musings about Holmes' future prospects. In 1903, in another letter to his mother, he falls for the financial rewards of stories featuring his slain sleuth. I have done no Sherlock Holmes stories for 7 or 8 years, and I don't see why I should not have another go at them and earn 3 times as much money as I can by any other form of work. I have finished the first one, and it is a rare good one. You will find that Holmes was never dead, and that he is now very much alive. Doyle was considering a suggestion of his then-girlfriend, Jean Leckie, later his wife, that Holmes, who had vanquished in a standoff with Moriarty at the Reichenbach Falls in the final problem of 1893, had in reality staged and faked his own death. The interregnum or hiatus was now soon coming to a close. Holmes was sent into crime-solving once again by his patron Doyle. When the third storybook with Holmes, The Return of Sherlock Holmes, had appeared in 1905 after being serialized in the Strand magazine, that same year, Doyle, in a New York Times interview of November 19, 1905, Jack asked Holmes once again in a very public and blunt fashion, I am tired of Sherlock Holmes. I want to do some more solid work again. Sherlock and Gerard, referring to as Etienne Gerard's serialized character, are all right in their way, but after all, one gets very little satisfaction from such work afterwards. Nor do I think I shall write any more short stories for some time to come.